Okay, well, hi everyone. Give a little wave. It's so good to see you guys. Um, we had such a delightful time last time we met with Gopi, and we had Satish there as joining in to sort of be a part of our whole group. Satish, how are you?
I'm doing good, Sarah. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to talk to you guys today.
Thank you so much for coming. We're so excited to have you. So what I was hoping to do this afternoon, everyone, I don't know if you guys are, but I've been very eager to watch the debates. So we, of course, booked this session all together long before they booked the debate, so we didn't really know this was coming. So we are going to plan to finish at about 5 to 10 minutes before 6. So I want us to pretty much dive right in, and so that we've kind of got time to do everything. So once again, hi to everybody. If I didn't have a chance to meet you personally last time, I'm Sarah Ivanhoe, and I am the yoga director at USC. And this is our second session of Optimize Your Life. And so this time we've got, for our second session, we've got Satish Tallapaka. Did I say that correctly, Satish?
You got it. Yeah.
Speaking to us from Google, and in a very, this is a new adjective to me, in a very googly fashion, Satish suggested that I already sent you guys Satish's very fancy and impressive bio of all of his career highlights, but he thought that maybe a better way to introduce him this afternoon would be to play the game 3 Truths and a Lie. So that's what we're going to start out with. He has given me 3 truths and a lie, and Ashley has set up for us a poll. So I'm going to read these out to you, and then she is going to send out the poll, and then you guys will play the game 3 truths and a lie. So as I understand it, and I'm new to this game, but as I understand it, I basically give you 4 statements, and then you guys get to choose which of the statements you think are true and which of them you think are a lie. And then at the end, all of the answers are revealed, and Satish can tell us a little bit about those 4 fun facts about himself. And then he'll dive into his presentation for us, and then we'll have a nice Q&A dialogue. A couple of you sent me some questions, and we can also just be spontaneous, and then we'll wrap it out. Okay? Sound good? Get some nods? Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to read. I'm going to read these out. Okay, 4 statements. Satish has performed. By the way, if you hear a little snoring, I'm just giving you guys a little heads up. This is my little lap dog, Madison, who is here. Actually, her name is Justice Madison because she was named after Justice Ginsburg. So she's here. If you're hearing a little extra, if you're wondering what those sounds are, that's my little girl joining us. So, okay, so 4 statements. Here we go. Satish has performed headstand on Mount Shasta. Satish has run a marathon. Satish can trace his family history 4,200 years back without Ancestry.com. And Satish has worked on a Super Bowl commercial for a car company. Okay, those are the 4 statements, and Ashley is going to send out the poll now. Hi, Amalia. I see you. Whoa, okay, all right. Okay, go ahead. All right.
Okay, we have about 76% voted so far, so I'm waiting for 100%, so, or close to 100 at least.
Anyone else want to give it a shot?
Okay, I think that's everyone, so I'm gonna end the poll and reveal the results to you all, and then we can talk about which one's correct.
Okay, so Satish, do you want to unpack all this for us?
Yeah, I think you guys are pretty much spot on the lie. I never ran a marathon, right? That is doesn't work with yoga practice, and I don't think so I can run 26 miles. I can probably practice for 4 hours of yoga, maybe not a marathon. So that's not me. So you got it. So yeah, the truths. I mean, rest are all truths, right? So that's a lie. Uh, I did do a headstand on Mount Shasta in the snow. I mean, it was a little hard to get up on the head with all the gear, but I did. And yeah, I have a family history traces back to 4,200 years. I mean, in South India, where I come from, my ancestors moved from Varanasi when there was a flood. Actually, it was proven by the carbon dating that some of those incidents which were written up in the family history books were actually true. So that's kind of something which I'm humbled about, being part of that tree. And yeah, the car commercial, yes, I worked on a Super Bowl commercial, like for a car company. I mean, as a tech director at the time, waiting in front of the computer, see how big this becomes. So that's me in terms of what I did.
That's
So
fun.
that's a quick insight, yeah.
This is really fun. Yeah. Do you want to tell us, Satish, just a little bit more about your family or lineage? I think you mentioned a famous poet, and maybe a little bit of how that might have planted the seeds for what you do today.
Yeah. So my last name Tallapaka, if you Google it, you'll find Wikipedia articles and quite a few links coming up for a 15th century poet laureate called Tallapaka Annamacharya. He was this realized soul from that time, who wrote 32,000 verses on the God, and like my family history traces back from there, right? So he's my great ancestor. So I think the past samskaras, if you would know the word samskara, it's actually the somehow some karma I did in the past life probably is good. So where I landed up here, right? So the vasanas of the yoga, maybe my ancestors did it or I did it in my previous life, that actually helped me to be here and kind of talk to you guys today. And also helps me in my practice. I've been practicing asanas and different types of yoga, right? Holistically for a while now. And yeah, so that's how I see that coming through.
Wonderful. Well, do you want to? Yeah, I think you have some stuff prepared. Do you want to dive in for us?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So let me talk about a little bit about my work at Google and what I do. And this presentation, like it's mostly a talk, right? So I want to keep it interactive. I call this Yogler's perspective, right? You must be wondering what is Yogler. So Yogler is this group started by Gopi, whom you met last time, I think maybe 14 years back at Google, where a enthusiastic people about yoga and healthy living just come together and practice. It's completely a voluntary driven organization. So we all just go and teach yoga as a karma yoga, right? So there's no monetary benefits to anybody. It's just helping others. So that's basically part of the Google, right? The Googliness. So doing the right thing and being helpful as actually is a core part of being a Googler. I mean, I'm humbled to be at a company where you see so many people who won the Turing Awards and people who have done things which actually change the world, right? As you see today, and being in that company, I kind of very, very humble, right? But people here are very down to earth. They kind of talk to you, respectfulness, right? That's another aspect of the Googliness I want to share with you guys is being that respect. So we have a very few, very, I think, key traits of it being at Google is like having a respect for yourself, respect for the opportunity, for the user and others, right? All these things actually make you who you are, apart from your technical skills, your management skills, and other skills you bring. And that's one of the key aspects of being at Google. And my day-to-day work, again, I work on artificial intelligence products, especially on industrial AI. Some of the products which I work on have a great impact on the sustainability of the earth. So we are working on using the AI for the good of mankind. You might have probably, if you Google, there is a blog post about Google saving about 40% of the energy savings in Google data centers using AI. So that's kind of one of the products I work on. So it's like using the AI to really kind of change the world, right? You can use AI is everywhere today, right? Your Netflix has AI. Anything you do has AI behind the scenes. Probably this particular Zoom call, somebody's analyzing how we talk, right? We don't know, but it's all part of it. So what I work on is the AI for a different purpose. It's mostly on the AI um, for making sure the earth is a better place and we are all going to be in a better place than what we are today. So that's my work at Google. Okay. And yeah, so I think just kind of like looking at the work I do and, people I meet and the teams I lead, I have a large team spread across the multiple geographic locations. We have a team in London and here, multiple locations in the US. And different people, right? Different backgrounds, different cultural understanding. Making sure we are all one team is my biggest challenge every day in my work, right? And that's where I look back at my yoga background and think through the leadership skills, right? I mean, the key definitions of leadership is it's not that what you do, right? How you influence others to do the things which they want to do. It's not like you're not a taskmaster saying, go do it. That is not leadership, right? So that is something which people might do for a while and then they leave you. It is making sure it's their interest, which you actually understand, and making sure they do their work as if it is their idea is a key aspect of it. So, and that means understanding others, right? That means understanding others, taking perspectives, and see how you resolve your conflict in a way that it works well for everybody, right? Of course, you have to be assertive in a way, but again, in that assertion also, you need to make sure you always take the perspectives and look for your end goal. So a couple of concepts I want to share with you guys because there's a yoga related talk, and then what I kind of look deeper is this thing called contrary thinking, right? It is called the Pratipaksha Bhavana. So we always think one way, okay, fine, like, somebody comes and gives a comment or provides a feedback, whether negative or positive. We always jump, most of the times our brain, we act emotionally, right? We jump to a conclusion and we don't take the perspective of others. It's very rare, right? We do that. And I think slowing down and thinking back and figuring out what is the contrary thinking, what can I do to make sure what's going on in somebody else's head, right? Why that person has acted will actually make you better person, right? And when you interact others. So this is a simple Yoga Sutra, which is there. It's just about Pratipaksha Bhavana in Yoga Sutra. So that's one thing. The other one is, I think, how do you manage such a team in such a high caliber people and like keep the motivation going on? Some of the projects we work on very challenging. Sometimes there will be ups and downs, and keeping the team going is one thing I learned well. And Google, you see that, and so if you have done internship or if you worked here, enhancing somebody else's joy, I think is inherent here in culture. I see like if somebody wins a peer bonus or some kind of award, you see like a maybe 20-30 congratulation emails going out continuously. So people don't feel like jealous because a person got a recognition. We all like pile on and say, okay, congrats, you've done a great job. So it enhances and amplifies somebody's joy. I feel that amplification gives you a lifelong friend. And also you are genuinely amplifying somebody else's joy and you are joyful. I think sometimes in human emotions, we might feel, oh, why did that guy got, or like that girl got, and I didn't get it. But I think thinking about like keeping that aside and you amplifying somebody else's joy actually makes things better. That's something I see at Google, and that's something which I kind of take to heart. This Yoga Sutra, which I wrote in my small article too. It says Maitri Karuna Mudita, right? Uh, Maitri is the friendship, right? Having that friendliness. Karuna is compassion, and Mudito is joyousness. And enhancing somebody else's joy and amplifying it actually makes a big difference as a leader. In any case, right? You be a student or you're working somewhere, and that attitude actually takes you places because people are going to be with you, right? Not like they don't work for you, but they're going to work with you. I think that's a big difference I take as a life lesson, because when I started my career many years back, yeah, you feel like sometimes down, like why that guy or that person is getting better than me. But again, like saying, what can I do, right? And being that particular person, that yoga thinking actually molded me quite a bit, right? That's on how I take the leadership in my day-to-day work. And again, I think if you guys think about it, I think in your everyday life, leadership is one thing. The other thing is we have a lot of stress. Today with the COVID, the pandemic, and if you're in California, right, we have these wildfires. You're stuck at home. You can't meet your friends. It's just so many things going on, and that constantly actually bombards us. And everybody is a human being, and we are going to be down because of that. But I think again, having a perspective on these things, thinking through in a more clear manner why the stress is being caused to us, helps us to kind of keep that layer of separation. And as I said, it's easier said than done. That's where some of my yoga practices help me quite a bit to achieve that particular thing, right? um, so in terms of health, right, we always think, okay, we are healthy, we are fit, we are doing this, but many of us, and again, like the modern definition doesn't look at the holistic person's health. That is something, again, another thing I take at heart is this one line which says prasannatma indriya manaha. That means prasanna means the happiness, indriya is the body, right, mana is the head, like the brain, the mind. Having a blissful state of both the physical and the mental body. The word is prasanna, it's a blissful state, right? It is beyond happiness. Having that blissful state actually makes you a better leader and better colleague and a better person overall, right? The reason I'm telling you the Sanskrit words is having awareness, something like this exists, makes us think about it. The whole idea about this yoga sutras or the yoga or all these things is having an awareness. Okay, there is an aphorism which was written 200 BC, right? Human beings haven't changed since then to today, right? So though we have kind of progressed so much in everything, but human being is human being for millions of years. So, but the sage Patanjali wrote, I don't know when, like 200 BC, and this still today, we can still find a meaning in those words. That's how I think. I mean, that's why I kind of keep these things on my table, like this is what it is. So that kind of reminds me continuously what to think through. And that's one thing, right? Another thing which is more practical and everyday day-to-day life, and my yoga practice as such. Yoga mostly is considered to be asanas practice, right? It's great. You start wherever you want to start in your practice. I started like that, and I keep still doing my asanas. But one thing which I kind of take to heart is, again, as I said, talked about stress. We don't want your practice to be stressful. That means you don't want to feel pain after you finishing a practice and cause more problems to your already stressful life. This practice should be relaxing. In that word, there is again for awareness, there is a sutra called Praitna Shaitilyam Ananta Samapatibhyam. What it means truly is make sure your practice is for relaxing and contemplate on infinite. Again, you may believe in a God or you don't believe in a God, doesn't matter. There is a higher force somewhere. That infinite is what you have to contemplate when you practice these practices. So that takes your practice from mere physical practice to holistic, as I talked about this prasannatma indriya manaha, to that concept of both physical and mental bliss. Right? So then you are able to make a better decision in everything you do. Okay. So that's at a very high level how I see yoga helping me in my every aspects of what I do here at work and in my life. So let me pause here. Any questions or anything, or anything, Sarah, you want to add? Anybody wants to add anything?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I would love to sort of unpack, but one thing that you touched on sort of at the beginning of what you said, and please excuse me, my Sanskrit pronunciation is not as good as yours, but I wanted to share with everyone this notion, this timeless notion of pratipaksha bhavana, which I believe, did I say it correctly? Pratipaksha bhavana. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read what Satish had sent over, but from the ancient Yoga Sutras, Pratipaksha bhavana is essentially what the rough translation is cultivation of the opposite. what I love that he's bringing to us is that it's an ancient concept that's, you know, thousands of years old. But the way that people talk about this today, and they use the term affirmations, and they think that we're creating something new or figuring out some modern day, you know, psychology or slogan, but this is something that's been around for thousands of years, which is simply, you know, if we are, you know, really angry and frustrated at something, we just try to catch ourselves in the middle of feeling that, and we just sort of say to ourselves, I am at peace. Or if we're feeling not well, physically run down, we say to ourselves, I'm healthy, or something like this, where we're really trying to uh, sort of tell ourselves, you know, tell ourselves that we can be, you know, in this more positive way. This is an ancient concept that is being reframed by leaders and speakers today in many ways. And I was hoping you could maybe just speak a little bit more about that, because I think it's a really valuable tool. We all come to this mentorship because we're all stressed out. We have too much to do. We're trying to navigate our lives. We're in the middle of all this craziness. And I feel like this is one of the tools I really would love for you to highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think Sarah beautifully. I mean, you got you basically explained that very well, right? So the Pratipaksha Bhavana is that a contrary thinking, right? Opposite to anything, right? So you see, again, it's also a combination of that with the Maitri Karuna concept, where you at the end of the day, why all these things are done is to get you to a state of blissful mind. So if you look at like unpacking these two things, the Pratipaksha Bhavana and having a more compassionate person, being a compassionate person, is for your mind to be more clear, right? So from yoga perspective and even for the life perspective, it used to something called chitta prasadana. That means having a blissful state of mind. When we have anger, when somebody is angry and we show anger, then you're basically kind of pushing and adding more fuel at the end of the day. But if you just back off and show more compassion, understand the person, your brain, you are not kind of agitated, right? Your agitation comes down. That is the contrary to what you're looking at, right? And that's where you get to concentration. Like the yoga, if you look at yoga terms, yoga is yoga samadho, yoga is concentration. But that concentration cannot happen if your mind is agitated. And things which agitate us is this environmental stress, right? So one is, that's where Pratipaksha Bhavana comes to the play. To reduce that, one of the environmental stress conditions, if you look at modern way of looking at it, stepping back, right? And then thinking opposite way. So that's one of the key aspects of all of core yoga, is to have that state of mind. And the next one in yoga, why these things are done, it says yoga is samyamane. Yoga is control. So to get to that control, if you are again being agitated because of the thoughts, you are not going to be in that control state. If you're not in a control state, I mean, forget about the different spiritual practices. Just for a regular day-to-day life, not being in a control of your emotions causes more problems. So that's how I interpret like these things, why these sutras are written practically from everyday life to a higher spiritual practices of yoga. Because Raja Yoga Sutras, they talk about the root cause of all our sufferings. They call this kleshas. So there are like 5 kleshas. I don't remember them. Maybe I can go through. They're called avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abnivesha, kleshaha. That is the sutra. Avidya means ignorance, right? Asmita is the ego, where it's all about me. Raga is the attachment. Dvesha is the hatred, and abnivesha is actually fear. Generally, they call it like fear of something happens bad to you. So these kleshas are root cause of everything. So when you look at everything through the lens of klesha and understand, okay, why I'm not happy because of situation, is because if you're raga, that means you have desire is important, but unbounded desire is a problem, right? We are to be ambitious in our professional life. You need to keep growing, right? If I'm going to stay in one place, I would not have been working at Google, but I have to have desire. But I need to have a bounded desire that I need to be here. I need to do these things, but that should not impact something else. That is my control on my raga, right? Dvesha is again the hatred, right? We should not be hating somebody else. Instead of, figure out like what to do, right? All these things are because of the ignorance of, as a human beings. Again, I know it's a tough topic, but again, the life is limited, right? It is not an unlimited thing. Mortality is the truth. So having the truth on the head, and if you think through everything else through that lens, you are basically going to be happy, you know. So we don't look at those things. We always see, okay, we are going to be, you know, what they call like immortal, right, forever, but that doesn't happen. So having through these things, and all these practices helps you to get to a state of constant bliss for the time we are on this planet. So that's how I see these things connecting together, the dots between the spiritual world and then everyday life. Hope that helps to clarify, Sarah.
Oh, I loved what you just said. This was really helpful. I think I see a lot of nodding heads and people putting ideas together. I know that Suhas had some great questions. So if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I just had two questions. So my first one is like for me personally, I've always wanted to learn about like a more traditional sense of yoga and also more about the yoga philosophy, which I feel like, especially in the US, gets lost sometimes. And so I was wondering, like, do you know any ways that we can learn more about that philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think the key one word, right? Yoga is concentration. That I think understanding the basic definition of yoga is that concentration. And in terms of, I can provide you resources which I follow, but I just from philosophically, right? So if you see the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and he talks about yama niyama asana pranayama pratyahara dharana dhyana samadhi ashtangani, right? He says 8 limbs of yoga practice. You might have seen this one. The things which are lost in generally in the West, or mostly in India, everywhere, right, is that first 2 things, the yamas and niyamas, the observances. Because without those things, you are not going to be mentally stable to practice the yoga to the level it has to be practiced. Even for me, every asana is advanced practice if you practice with the awareness. Even just standing, because I can stand on one leg and give this lecture, right, for some time. But again, you have to practice that in a way you're relaxed, right? Ananda Samapatibhyam. And your mental state should be clear. If your mental state is agitated, your physical state will not be formed, right? In terms of my personal following, like what kind of schools I follow in yoga, I got trained by this school called Kaivalyadam, which was established in 1924 in India. It's in near Bombay, Pune. It's a school. One of the original like yoga research centers before yoga is fancy, right? And I also was trained in Shivananda's schools, like, and also practice my own things. I read a lot of books, practice, and my guru, fortunate, I stayed with him. His name is, he's not known in the like, you know, Western circles anywhere. Is Gopananda. He was a realized soul, right? He was able to walk things miles just walking from one place to other place, and did a lot of penances. So all those things helped me to be where I am in my practice. But I think if you're looking at the traditional schools, some of these, like I think Kaivalyadam and their teachings help you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Did you have a follow-up question to us?
Yeah, my other just kind of unrelated question was going to be, you know, as students, well, sometimes I think our biggest problems are probably like one is focus and the other one is just relaxation and burnout. And so whether you had any like yoga practices that you recommend specifically for that.
Absolutely. So if you guys want, we can do for 2 minutes a simple relaxation practice right now. You guys are up to it? Cool. So we'll do a simple yoga practice called alternate nostril breathing, right? So at the end of the day, let me give a quick one-line theory about this one, right? So we're going to inhale through one nostril, exhale through the other one, and vice versa. What happens is, the key with yoga practice is yoga breathing is slowing down the breath. When you slow down the breath, we are going to get to the state of rest. So your hypothalamus, when it sends the responses to the rest of the organs, they see everything is at rest. So your organs will be at rest instead of agitated. So this simple yoga practice, we're going to practice for a few minutes, like a couple of, maybe a minute or so. just a simple alternate nostril breathing. And you can ask me questions about it later, okay? So here, so you sit nice and tall, like, make sure your spine is in natural curvature and you're erect. And you take your right hand, first 2 fingers down, other 2 fingers are open. The left hand, just keep it open, right, like this. It's called Gnana Mudra, just a symbol of knowledge. And the right hand is Pranav Mudra or Vishnu Mudra. And you gently close your right nostril, right? There is a small bone, and you inhale through the left. Deep inhalation. You gently close the left nostril, exhale through the right. Again, inhale deeply through the right nostril. Close the right nostril, exhale through the left. Elongate the exhalation. Inhale deeply. Close. Gently exhale. One more time, inhale deeply. Close, exhale. Then inhale deeply. Slowly exhale. Gently lower down your hands. So this is a simple practice, simple alternate nostril breathing or anuloma, viloma, pranayama, right? So this one, you just inhale, like make sure your diaphragm is opened up, right? So chest opens up, the clavicle bones all the way up, full oxygen. And you just exhale through the other one. So by practicing this regularly, it does break the patterns of the stress. Right? Scientifically, as I said, your stress responses are going to be more parasympathetic by doing this continuously, right? So you guys know that, right, how the stress response, the fight or flight, right, the sympathetic response, which actually increases cortisol, adrenal, like all of the hormones are released. But when you start doing these practices, there is a feedback loop to our brain, to the cells continuously, and it slows down, and we are going to be much more at rest. Even though there is a situation which comes to you, you will be acting at the rest and stuff in a more agitated fashion. So I think this is a simple stress buster in my view. And I'll tell you one more thing, 30 seconds. One more other simple technique for stress busting is this. There are 8 types of pranayamas which are described in yogic texts, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So there is one here I'm going to talk about like for 30 seconds. It's called Brahmari Pranayama. It's like a bee, like you have seen a buzzing bee. So it's a very simple way to relax, like by giving a buzzing sound of a bee through your nose. So all you're doing is just sitting nice and tall, like as you did before. I just show you, and then you can practice quickly. Just inhale deeply, then exhalation. Okay, that's it. So just inhale and elongate your exhalation through your nose. Just that sound of the bee, just a rhythmic, melodious, like just a kind of a continuous sound. Okay. Practice for like 10, 15 seconds. Let's try one more time. Just take a nice deep breath. With exhalation, let's do the bee sound. Okay. And yeah, these 2 techniques are simple ones. You can practice for 5-10 minutes a day. It makes a difference. Even this Brahmari, you can practice before you sleep, like maybe 10 minutes before you go to bed. Just do this one. It basically changes your responses, and then you go to really great sleep. Right? Sarah is expert on the sleep, I think. So this is a simple, these two are very simple things for like 10 minutes a day. You don't need to do all crazy yoga poses. This is my simple recipe. Okay.
I love those. Sorry, I just had the gardeners come here. I just had to close some windows. Classic Zoom adventures. Those are really helpful for people because to hear. So those are things that we can just do in between classes, in between projects. So helpful. Was it? Oh, Susan, you sent a couple of questions over, didn't you?
Sorry, did you say Susan? I couldn't tell. Okay, yeah. So my question is around intentionality. You know, I noticed from the kind of blurb that Sarah put out there that you've gotten to take up a lot of really neat opportunities. And it's something that I'm trying to think for myself is how do you stay intentional about the opportunities that you take? So you're not just saying yes to everything in your career, and instead you're looking at purpose. Do you have a method for how you make decisions as far as the opportunities that you take, or have you pulled anything from your practice to think about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think early on in my career, I definitely, most of my decisions are definitely driven by the intention, like doing good was my key intention, right? Always, again, like going back like many years back in my career, when I was working in some advertising agencies, I did not want to work on specific types of businesses because ethically, I did not want to be there, though it might have given me more money. So I keep that in mind today too when I'm working on my machine learning AI practices. My intentions always has been that whatever ambitions and money I'm making and then the work I'm doing should be for a broader good. And I think going with that intention, I've been fortunate that things fell in place. You know, of course, as you said, like saying no is actually that's important, right? You have to figure out when to say no, and you have to say no when it is required. But I think that sankalpa, in the yoga terms, it's the sankalpa, what you call it, that intention. Having that sankalpa in deep in your consciousness, in your practice, like when you do your pranayama or any practices, having that sankalpa actually drives you towards the goal. My personal experience with joining Google, like even before joining Google, like maybe 5 years back, I was working on completely different thing, not artificial intelligence. I was working on some content management systems and things like that. But then one day I kind of read some AI books and I felt, okay, this is a field I need to go. And my mind was set on that. And I had this deep sankalpa that I need to go. I went to my boss and said, I want to do AI next year. That guy laughed at me, say, we don't do AI in this company. But I did not bother about it. It's stuck in my head and I kept on working on it. I went to Coursera, did a bunch of courses and kind of made myself available and be that person, right? So I kind of drove the path towards. I feel like that sankalpa you set for yourself, that intention in yogic terms, is really kind of going to take you places, no matter what that present situation would be. Hope I answered your question, Susan.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, Stephanie, did you send something over? I don't remember. Stephanie, did you have a question?
Oh no, sorry, I did not.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else? Elizabeth? Yeah, Shanisha. Shanisha, you go ahead.
Hi, Shanice. I have a question for you, Satish, and it's kind of similar to the previous question. I know, like with meditation, we're supposed to kind of reserve judgment, or put aside judgment in general, and so that's something that I struggle with. Part of my role as a researcher and my part as a critical reasoning and writing teacher, it compels me to stay engaged. Where like my students, they write 4 papers, within a 16-week cycle, and they do 4 drafts of each paper. So I'm constantly in that cycle of that criticality, and so it's something that I have a hard time turning off. I guess I was associated with kind of like that monkey mind, where it's like I go here, there, because I'm trying to help them to uncover the patterns. And in particular, during this climate centered around kind of like where there's like heightened racial tension and dealing with those uncomfortable conversations and things, that's something that I'm kind of struggling with. Like I can't turn it off. And it's like when I go to sleep, I can't turn it off. And I'm trying to figure out a way to that, like when I'm in my meditation practice or outside of it, to be able to let go, because like it'll surface in my conversations with family and they're just like, get out of school teacher mode, get out of professor mode, get out of researcher mode. And so I even in some of the meditation practices, so that's one thing, struggling with. Just want insight on that. And another aspect, sometime attending like meditation groups or sitting groups, like where sometimes the meditation sessions can be tone deaf or kind of colorblind and not consider contextual things that affect other people. And it's surfaced in a recent one that I've been attending. And like, it's like, Shanice put judgment to the side, and like I brought up like, okay, trying to apply a concept to my life. It was like, oh, I meant like if you're going to miss a flight, I'm talking about that, not those big things. So I'm like, when do we deal with the big things that some people have to grapple with? And so that's just been my challenge, just as a person of color, sometimes navigating different meditation spaces where I'm feeling, I guess, invisible or not heard.
Great question. So I'll try to do justice from my perspective, right? The way I see it. I mean, it's a human nature. When you see somebody, like there is always that initial flash of a perception or anything. We go through that, right? I think from yogic perspective, understanding that again, I'm going to go a little deeper into the philosophy, right? Not as a Googler, but like more of a yoga practitioner. So in yogic perspective, if you think about that, philosophically, we are all same consciousness. But I think this Maya is what actually clouds our decision making process continuously, and this environment is actually feeds into that particular thing. And that's where it is the human nature, because of that particular cloud of Maya continuously on us. And taking that veil, that Maya's veil out, and try getting into that more clarity, like looking through the mirror clearly, is not an easy task. I mean, that's the whole idea about what we do with the yoga practices. And to start off with, as you said, the meditation groups. Even in the meditation groups, when you're sitting together with people, as I said, this whole understanding of one consciousness, when you're sitting and you see the bombardment of thought waves, the chitta, the waves going on across in the room, multiple people, without you thinking, you are basically connected to others, right, in that place. You are also taking clues from everybody else's thoughts continuously. And having that awareness and separating that, it takes a lot of practices, and breaking that circuits, both internally what we are going through and external circuits. That's where some of this pranayama, like in terms of actual tactics, is these practices of pratyahara, right, where you are actually withdrawing the senses. So that's the practice after you go through your asana pranayama, is your pratyahara, where you're actually withdrawing from these things, right? So we are getting away from these kind of senses. And that's when I say you, it's everybody, right? So we all going to get to a state where you are not going to be impacted by these things. And you got to a state of like completely, I mean, English word for pratyahara is dispassion, but it is truly not that. It's like that withdrawal of the senses is what happens when you actually get to a state where you have more control on your mind, right? Mind is not same as brain, right? It's all pervading. And I think that's what it is. And the next step is the dharana, which is that one pointedness. It's right. That's much more difficult, and that has to happen automatically. You can't see. One of the things I learned in my yoga practice is meditation is not something you can do. It has to happen. So it is not something you can force yourself to meditate. Meditation is a path, is actually end goal of your yoga, is to get to that concentrated state. You need to go through the whole journey to reach there. So when somebody says, I'm going to teach you meditation, I don't think so anybody can teach you meditation. It has to happen within you. They can provide you tools to get there, but it's actually up to you. I mean, it takes years of practice, and I don't think so I'm there, but it's a journey, I feel. So that's my personal belief, and that's how I look at these things. Shanice, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Great.
Can I ask a question?
Great. Yes, Elizabeth, of course.
I think it'll be quick.
Sure.
So one of the things that I'm having a lot of trouble with is trying to build in meditation into my routine. And some of the ways, like, I mean, oftentimes when I hear people talk about it, there's like this like 40 minutes or 30 minutes or 10 minutes. And for me, I'm trying to figure out how to build it into my routine so that it can be built up to being longer, but recognizing and being okay with the fact that, like, right now, if I can take 5 minutes to do it, then that's great. And I'm willing to trade the 5 minutes of staring at my phone. But so I'm just wondering how you have been able to, or how you coach others in kind of building meditation into their routine as like a daily practice.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the Raja Yoga Sutras on this one. So there is a sutra which says, Tapa Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana Kriya Yoga. So meditation is actually a kind of tapa, which is the penance you go through, right? So you can, so your question is like, how can I go from 5 minutes to 50 minutes, right? So if that's how you're looking at that elongation, just understanding what meditation is key in my view. So you start off with using these practices like pranayama. I mean, asana is one thing, so that you can sit for a while, doing a pranayama practice to calm your mind down, because without that, you cannot go for a longer meditation cycle. And without having a physical strength to sit still, make sure your spine is erect, right? All of those characteristics, you cannot go longer. So your body will like hit you continuously, then you can't do it, and your mind will be wandering. So having those two things initially is a key thing. And starting your meditation with either what I was saying, the Om chanting, again, like the Om is a primordial sound, that kind of brings that vibrations inside you and like cleanse. What happens is this whole concept, which I did not talk about, is the cleansing which happens inside, so that you can stay in these practices for a longer period. It is called Antakarana Shuddhi. That means inside the body, you need to have that cleansing needs to happen. That means our thoughts has to be cleansed. The physical cleansing is one thing, but the whole thing is from yogic perspective, that needs to happen for you to sit for a longer period. So tactically, your asana, pranayama, and like Om chanting, that prolonging that helps you, and slowly you'll get to a state where you can sit for a longer period. And also you can bring meditation in anything you do, right? That's another thing which I am learning is even when you practice your asanas, you can make it meditative, right? So you close your eyes, even just a simple pose where you're holding it like this, you can make it meditative rather than like creating separate time for meditation and space for it. Hope that helps, Elizabeth. I mean, I can go on and on, but I just want to make sure I'm looking at the time. So
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to, oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just gonna ask, do you have I find that like having guided is really helpful. Is there anything that you would recommend as far as like guided meditations, knowing that like you know it's gonna be a shorter period of time and it's something that I'm working towards building into my schedule?
yeah, my simple answer for guided meditation is you could I mean, there could be like people, apps and programs and all of those things, but simply very simple self-guided meditation is this called Soha meditation or empty ball meditation. Like Tibetan monks used to do that. What you do is you inhale from the bottom of your spine in front of the body, like if you know the chakra concept, touching each of the chakras, as you go up all the way to the top. And you exhale from your spine, touching chakras in the back, and goes all the way bottom. And then it rotates continuously in circular fashion. That's your self-guided meditation, where you're aware of your breath and using your breath to focus so that your focus is not lost anywhere. And you're basically continuously looking inwards. I feel that's the simplest form of meditation. You can self-guide yourself without anybody else telling you anything.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Sure, great.
I love that. I wanted to just also add, there is a Mindful USC app that is free to all USC people with a lot of, guided practices on it. So that's, that's also nice. What came to my mind, Elizabeth, with your question is, sometimes if you're wanting to increase your practice, increasing frequency of practice can also help if you are not able to increase duration. So if you feel like you're doing a 5-10 minute practice and you just can't sit there for 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, you could do something where I'm going to do a 5-10 minute practice in the morning, and then I'm also, once I put my phone down at the end of the night, I'll do it at night. So increasing the times where you put everything away and just drop in for a few minutes, that can also be a valuable tool. Satish, do you agree with that?
Advice. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that the key is the continuity, right? The frequency matters more than actually how long you do. Yeah.
Great. Satish, I'm going to want to wrap this all up. I feel like we could all sit here and talk for hours. Any last little gems you'd like to leave us with?
I just want to say, Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu. That means just everybody be happy, stay safe. Thank you so much for having me here, sharing time with you guys, and I wish you guys all the best. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sarah, for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. This
Thank you,
has been
Satish.
such a treat.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Satish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks, everyone.
everybody. Okay, I'll be emailing everyone. Thanks.